Right now, this second, there is a bear somewhere in America that you will never see. It might be 3 miles from your back door. It might have crossed a road you drove down last week. And it is watching the tree line a lot more carefully than you are watching for it. There are around 300,000 black bears living in the United States, spread across 40 of the 50 states. And the strangest thing about them is this: almost nobody ever sees one. They move through our woods like smoke, and one of them, a cub, barely 6 months old, small enough to sit in a laundry basket, is about to face the hardest year of its entire life. Most cubs like it do not make it to their second winter. This is the story of the one that does. Here's the part that sounds made up. This cub was not born out in the green world in spring. It was born in the dead of January in the pitch black at the bottom of a den, to a mother who was fast asleep, because black bears do something that should not be possible. In the autumn, the mother ate everything she could find: acorns, berries, insects, 20,000 calories a day, and then she climbed into a hollow under a fallen tree, curled her body into a ball, and shut the whole world off. Her heartbeat fell from around 50 beats a minute to as few as 8. Her body stopped making waste. She would not eat, would not drink, would not take a single step outside for up to 5 months. And then, in the deepest part of that sleep, in the cold and the dark, she gave birth. The cub weighed less than a can of soda, blind, nearly bald, completely helpless, and its mother, still half asleep, starving, running her entire body on nothing but the fat she had stored, pulled it in against her chest and let it drink. Her milk was made from her own dwindling body. She was feeding a brand new life, while slowly burning through her own. That is how these cubs begin, in the dark, drinking from a mother who is starving so that they don't have to. She will lose a third of her body weight before she ever eats again. When the snow finally softens and the light comes back, she leads it out, and the cub steps into the forest for the first time and stops dead. Because the forest is enormous, green and loud, and moving in every direction at once. Birds, wind,
giants,
the smell of 100 living things it has no names for. After a whole short life in a hole the size of a bathtub, the world just explodes open. The light is blinding. The ground is soft and strange under its feet, and everything is bigger than it is. And yet for a few short weeks it gets to be a baby. It climbs everything it can reach. It falls out of small trees and bounces and climbs straight back up. It chases its own siblings and wrestles them down a slope and scrambles back to do the whole thing again. Because a black bear cub's entire life is about to depend on one skill above all others: climbing. And right now, on these easy spring days, it thinks climbing is a game. It will not think that for long. So here is what you have to understand. Everything this cub needs to know, it has to learn from exactly one bear, its mother. She has about 1.5 years. That is all. To teach it the entire manual of staying alive. Where the food is, month by month, as the forest changes underneath them. Which plants are food and which are useless. Which rotten logs are packed with insects. How to crack a nut. How to strip a berry bush. How to read a scent riding in on the wind. And the single most important lesson of all, what to be afraid of and how fast to climb when you smell it. Because out here, the cub has almost no weapons. It cannot fight. It cannot outrun most of the things that would want it. What it can do better than almost anything else in the whole forest is go straight up a tree trunk in a matter of seconds. That tree is its shield, its bedroom, its escape hatch. A black bear cub that climbs fast gets to grow up. A black bear cub that hesitates often does not. And now the forest starts teaching it exactly what it is, because here is the first hard truth, and it's the one that surprises people the most. The deadliest thing in these woods to a bear cub is not the wolf.
Shadows,
it is not the mountain lion.
Moves.
It is another bear. A large male black bear will kill a cub if he comes across one, sometimes for the food, sometimes for reasons that are pure cold arithmetic, because a female without cubs will breed again sooner, and the mother knows this in her bones. So the day she catches that scent on the wind, big and male, and getting closer, she does not roar, and she does not charge. He is far too large for that. Instead, she makes one low, sharp sound, and the cub does the only thing that can save its life. It runs to the nearest tall tree and it climbs up past the low branches, up past where a heavy male can follow, 30 feet, 40 feet into the air, and it locks its claws into the bark, and it holds on, and it waits. Sometimes for hours, while its mother slips away and draws the danger off behind her. The cub survives this the same way it will survive nearly everything that is coming, not by winning, but by being somewhere the threat simply cannot reach. The second threat is the one that makes this an American story, because these woods are not empty, and they are not endless. They have edges. And just past those edges is our world, roads. A black bear does not understand a road. It only understands that the berries were good on the far side last year, and now there is a strange flat river of light and noise lying between this hillside and the next. And every single year in the United States, the largest killer of black bears is not starvation, and it is not other bears. It is the car. A cub trailing its mother across a dark two-lane highway is facing something that no instinct anywhere in its body was ever built to survive. And there are people, most of them mean it no harm at all, but a bear that learns to find an easy meal near us, a tipped-over trash can, a bird feeder, a cooler left out on a porch, is a bear walking a very short and very sad road. It loses its fear. It comes closer. And a bear that has stopped being afraid of people almost never grows old. So the mother has one more brutal job out here on the edge of our world to keep her cub wild, to keep it terrified of the one thing that finds it the most fascinating, which is us. And running underneath all of it is a clock the cub cannot see or hear, because the third threat is not a predator, and it is not a road, it is the calendar itself. This cub has to survive its first winter, and to survive the winter, it has to sleep straight through it. But you can only sleep through 5 months of starvation if you walk into that sleep already fat enough to burn the whole way to spring. So as the days start getting shorter, something switches on inside it, a hunger that is almost hard to describe, enormous, frantic. In the autumn, a young black bear will eat for up to 20 hours a day, chasing 20,000 calories, stripping every berry bush and shaking down every acorn-heavy oak it can find, racing the falling temperature to build a wall of fat thick enough to carry it through the dark. And in a bad year, a year when the acorns fail, when a late frost kills the berries, that wall does not get built high enough. And a cub that climbs down into its first den too thin is a cub that may simply never climb back out, not eaten, not struck by anything, just quietly in the cold and the dark, not quite enough. This is how most of the ones we lose are lost. Not in a single dramatic moment out in the open, in a slow, patient accounting, ounce by ounce, through the longest nights of the year, but slowly through the fear and the climbing and the endless desperate eating, the cub begins to change. It gets bigger, its climbing gets faster and surer, until a wall of bark is nothing to it at all. It stops trailing its mother to every single berry patch and starts finding its own. It learns the private map of its forest, the one good oak, the wet log full of grubs, the safe trees, the road that must never ever be crossed. And one gray afternoon it rolls over a rotten stump entirely on its own and eats what it finds underneath, and something quietly clicks into place. It is starting finally to be a bear, because the whole point of these long, hard months was never to keep the cub safe beside its mother forever. It was to get it ready for the day she is gone, and that day arrives with no ceremony at all. One ordinary morning, in its second year, the mother simply moves on. There is no goodbye. She has a new season coming, new cubs perhaps, and the last thing she has left to give this one is the same thing every wild mother gives in the end, the leaving itself. And the young bear stands there among the trees, alone in the only world it has ever known. Except now it is not helpless. Now it knows exactly which tree to climb, and how fast. Now it knows the sound a big male makes, and the smell of the road, and the slope where the acorns fall thickest in October. Now it knows how to swallow an entire autumn in a single desperate month, and carry that fat down into the dark, and come back out the other side alive. So it turns, and it walks off into the forest. Not a cub anymore, but one of the few that made it. One of the survivors moving through the American woods like smoke. In the trees behind the towns, in the green at the very edge of the map, close to us and completely apart from us, exactly the way they have been the entire time. You will probably never see it. And that is not a failure, that is the whole point. That is what it means to be a wild thing in a country full of people, to live your entire life just a few miles from us, and to stay wild anyway. So if this story stayed with you, subscribe. There is a new wild survival story here every week, and tell me in the comments, did you know there was a bear living that close to you? Because somewhere out there tonight, one of them is awake in the same darkness you are, and it is paying a great deal more attention than we ever do.